with me, Misha Garrick, writer of epic fantasy and urban fantasy. I'm hoping that you guys are going to get some notifications because it looks like once again I'm all by myself. But at least maybe hopefully one day in the future, some future people will also see this, and then I will have been glad to have posted this. Suddenly there are two people. So welcome to the video stream, and thanks for joining me. Drop a line in the chat to let me know who you guys are, and just also feel free to let me know what you guys will be working on today. I actually haven't decided what I want to work on. On the one hand, I have a communications plan that I have to draw up, which is not my own. It's actually a contract that I have to do, working on a communications plan for a project in Zambia. So that's one thing, but I haven't decided if I want to work over the weekend yet. Although my brain says that maybe it's a good idea because I actually got that other communications job that I mentioned a few weeks ago. So yay! I got the job. So I'm really excited about that. Hey, I want to say hi to Michael. Thanks so much for joining. I'm really glad you're here. What are you doing? What's going on in your life? Any interesting news? Just feel free to let me know in the chat. Otherwise, also just let me know what you will be working on, because that's always a good thing. So yeah, but yeah, so I'm actually going to just while I'm waiting for responses, I'm actually going to be working still from home, mostly doing the communications for this project, which is in Namibia, which is, for in case anyone doesn't know where that is, it's the neighboring country of South Africa, and Zambia is, I think, not neighboring country, but the country neighboring one of our neighboring countries. But yeah, so I now have one job in Namibia and one in Zambia, and but the one in Zambia being something that's actually quite a bit quicker to get there. So, but I'm really excited about the new job, so I'm looking forward to it. Hi DL, thanks so much for joining. I'm really glad to see you guys here. I'm so glad. Yay! It's always the scary thing when I realize I have to go live and I'm not sure if anyone is going to be here to watch the chat, at least, because when I started out, it was always freaking terrible when I had to do these live streams and then I would be talking to myself for like 20 minutes to an hour. So it's always awesome to see guys coming into the chat, because it's like, hey, I'm not alone. I don't like being alone. Yeah, so DL, let me know what you will be working on, and also if you have any interesting news that we should be celebrating or commiserating with or anything like that, because I'm always interested in finding out what's going on in you guys with you guys. So do let me know. But yeah, so guys, let's see. Michael says, I'm working on my House of Belgiumus story. It's a sci-fi young adult, maybe romance. And DL says, I'm going to be working on my memoir today, True Identities. Very cool. DL, did you manage to make the 10K last time? Because I didn't actually see a video with you come up on my feed. So I don't know if I missed it or anything. But let me know if you actually managed last week with the 10K a day challenge. It's going to be, I hope so. But yeah, so sounds awesome, guys. I'm really excited for you. And I hope that we're going to get plenty of writing done. On my side, I'm probably going to just do that communications plan part of it. I should actually be working on my own, or I should be working on my own book, but also because of the fact that it's actually a funny story. Let me just quickly tell you guys. So I actually expected to find out about the job in Namibia like towards the end of this week. And then on like Monday, Tuesday, the guys in Zambia actually asked me if I could do the communications plan for them. So I actually didn't even know whether or not I was going to get that other job. So I said, yeah, sure, because it's actually a good source of income for me. And And then what happened was I basically said, yeah, sure, I'm definitely going to be able to do this for you guys, even though I'm supposed to do a complete communications plan in like a bit more than 2 weeks. Sure thing, I can do this. I'm capable. And then what happened was within like 2 hours of me letting these guys know that I can actually do that job, I got the other job as well. So now I have 2 jobs, which is like very annoying. But when I say I have a job, I have to also mention that it's not like an employment contract. I work as a freelance or a contract worker, so I can take as many jobs as I can handle as long as I finish on time. But yeah, so that's kind of where the challenge comes in, because now suddenly I have a whole lot on my plate, and for that one goal or one job specifically, I'm on a very very limited time frame. So I should probably be working on that. So it's probably what I'm going to be doing, although I want to work on something else. But I'll see. Yeah, let's see. Oh yay, well done, DL. I see he says he got 10.8k last week. Awesome, good job. Round of applause. Really glad for you. Yay! Awesome, well done. No, so yeah, that is awesome. I'm glad for you. No, I'm so jealous. I wish I can do that right now. I have been terrible about writing the past few days, but it was mainly because of all uncertainty and stress of waiting to hear whether or not I got the contract. So, but hopefully now that things are settling down, I'm going to get back to writing, get more into a rhythm. I would have liked to do it today, but like I said, yeah, it's probably going to be a bit irresponsible of me not to work at least a little bit on that communications plan. Yeah. But yeah, so guys, I actually thought just for a quick, like, interesting topic so that I actually don't just talk in circles every time. I was thinking that we should just maybe consider talking a little bit about like wish fulfillment in writing, because it's something that a lot of people like have very strong opinions about. So I'm curious about what you guys think about it. And yeah, and then we can talk about that, and then we can just get straight into the writing. So for me, what I would like to hear from you guys is whether or not you think wish fulfillment has a place in writing, because I know some people are like very much, thou shalt not include wish fulfillment in your writing at all, none whatsoever. And then there are others that probably will just include wish fulfillment. So I'm curious, where do you guys fall on the spectrum? And do you guys actually do wish fulfillment in your writing in like a positive way, if I can put it that way? Because I think there are interesting ways in which one can use wish fulfillment, and in a sense, okay, let me just take a step back. So all right, so DL says he'll be right back, so he's not going to be answering me right now. Michael asked, what is that? So okay, so basically with wish fulfillment is it's actually something that I find people are a bit weird about. But basically what it's about is like, you wish, you as a person, you wish that, oh, you want to go on this epic adventure, so you basically write a story, for example, featuring you as the protagonist of this adventure story. Or I think there are actually different kinds of wish fulfillment. So that would be the one that most people kind of talk about when they say, oh no, you must not do wish fulfillment writing. um because most of the time when people do that, that's when they also write like very bland and boring characters, because they write characters that are like very um I almost want to say an idealized version of the writer, him or herself. And the problem with that, of course, is that idealized versions of people are usually not the best people to follow in stories, because that's pretty boring most of the time. And but yeah, so that's wish fulfillment. It's basically this idea of doing something not necessarily because it's called for in a story, but because it's something that you kind of wish that you can do. And yeah, so I don't know if you, now that I've given you kind of like a convoluted sort of definition for it, whether or not you have an opinion on it. But for me, I think there's a place for it. Actually, it sounds very random when I say it that way, but in a sense, most people when they read books kind of do it for wish fulfillment, in the sense that um, there are things that happen in writing that you can't really do in polite society, but it happens in books, and then everybody just feels like, yeah, awesome, I'm so glad that happened. So for me, that kind of wish fulfillment actually has a place in writing, but when it comes to, for example, self-insertion, where you basically, like I said, what you do is you take an idealized version of yourself and create a character from that person, and then have things happen in the story to that person. And I kind of think that because of the fact that you do that, it's not inherently wrong, but I'm just kind of the opinion that most people who do that open themselves up to like serious problems in storytelling, for the simple reason that they can't, it's very difficult to approach a person who's literal standing for you yourself and put them through the ringer the way that it is kind of necessary for a character to go through in order for a story to function. So that's kind of where my stance is that it's not necessarily bad to do wish fulfillment writing, but it's just something that you need to keep in mind, that you want to balance it out so that it's not like terribly bad in terms of like telling a good story. Because as long as the story's good, I don't really care whether or not you have put yourself into the story or not. Yeah, so but I'm curious to see what you guys say about that. So I'll wait a little bit, because now I'm talking a lot. I'm having to talk a lot, and it's a bit annoying for me because it's the filling up of the silences between comments during the lag, which is kind of making things a little bit complicated for me. Maybe one day I should just figure out like a theme song or something that I can put and activate on this thing while I'm waiting for answers, and I'll say, over to you guys. What is your opinion about? And then I'll play like a little theme song in the background while sitting here looking pretty or something. But yeah, that was a terrible looking pretty face. I have to say, horrible. So I'll stop doing that. But yeah, you guys get the idea. Just trying to not be deadly quiet and awkward, but then I talk a lot and I'm still awkward, so it's fantastic. But yeah. Okay, so Michael says, actually, he replied. He says, I personally don't see anything wrong with it. I usually take a lot from my own experience, and a lot of characters have at least some of me or someone I knew in them. So writing a story about an aspect you wish to experience is a great way to write, especially if you research. Yeah, that's definitely a very good point that you make. I think that's kind of also, I feel I agree with you with regards to that as well, because it's very hard not to write out of your own experience or out of your own feelings. I think there is always going to be an aspect of that in your writing, but and when I say your, I actually mean our. Like every writer influences their own characters in a sense, because the characters end up being a kind of extension of a writer, but not necessarily completely, which is always the thing that people get confused by, which is this whole idea of like, oh gosh, this is a racist character, therefore the writer must be a racist, or anything, anything of that kind of vein. And that's not necessarily true, because writers can do things that are completely unrelated to a writer, but have a character be that way because it serves a story for some reason or the other. And but it's kind of a balance between the two. But I think, especially, I have to also mention that the thing that I find is that when people talk about wish fulfillment writing, it's usually leveled at like women who write things like romances, who are like, um, yeah, because they like romance, so they write a romance. But then people in, for example, literary circles or other genres, and especially I'm very saddened to say, especially it tends to be men, would look down their nose at the women writers who are writing these romances, saying things like, "Oh no, it's not superior writing because all this is wish fulfillment and stuff like that." And really, that is very, I don't know. I think it's just a lot of times it's actually just a bad excuse to just be like very negative on people, but it's not necessarily actually a bad thing to do wish fulfillment as long as you do it well. And and that's actually kind of where I come in with that as well, because for me I feel like having a lot of these wishes that we are talking about, for example, with romance writers writing wish fulfillment, but about a romance, or wish fulfillment for going on an adventure, wish fulfillment to overcome problems, things like that. Those are, I feel, a lot of things that are actually kind of what makes people human. And so to share that kind of, to open yourself up to that kind of point where you do write that sort of wish fulfillment story, where it's about something that you wish would happen and you write about it, it's actually kind of a way of sharing yourself with your audience, because you're actually saying, well, this is something that's really personal to me, and that I went through, or that I wish I went through, that um I'm sure there are other people out there that have this in common with me. And so it gives them like, it's a way of relating, if you think about it, that having that commonality of wishes and dreams and hopes and things like that, that I think is not necessarily a bad thing. And that's why I'm actually just generally not very much in terms of anything. I don't like making hard and fast writing laws, because a lot of things that people talk about as if they are bad things are not necessarily that bad. It's just about using the right technique to actually make, yeah, if you can make a story work around something that someone says, don't do it. If a story works, then why don't you? Why not? Why is it such a bad thing then? So that's kind of what I feel about that. And for especially with wish fulfillment, again, it's that kind of thing where people, you want your readers to have that, yeah, I'm so glad that happened kind of feeling. And that kind of, I think that sensation of having a reader, or being a reader and having that like yes kind of response, usually has to do with some kind of unspoken law, or unspoken rule or law, or something that gets broken to a positive effect, but one that you as a reader can't necessarily break. And I'm not talking about like the dark stuff or anything like that. I'm talking about like, you know just, yeah, it's actually difficult to explain, but it's just having that moment of feeling like you have the power over something, for example, like your circumstances, and then having a story where a character actually gains that kind of control over their situation. Then it's actually something that's a wish fulfillment, not just for the writer but also for the reader, and they have that in common. And I think that's a lovely thing to have with the reader as a writer. So let's just see. Michael's just left a few comments while I was talking. He says, I was going to say the romance genre is full of wish fulfillment. It's not just men who put these writers down, but I get your point. Yeah, absolutely. It's not just men. I just said it feels like sometimes it's mostly men, but it's not just. It's often also other women, and it's not something that's just limited to that, because it's actually something that I have to mention, and that's why I kind of backpedaled a little bit, because I don't want to talk about it too much. But I honestly feel that people writing romance get a raw deal, because romance as a whole, as a genre, tends to be the one genre that people just love to bash. They just love attacking it, and they love like making like as if the writers are inferior and they are writing romance because it's, I don't know, easy, or because other people, they can't write anything else, or any, stuff like that. It's so stupid. And the fact of the matter is that for me, as a person who writes multiple genres, romance is actually the most difficult thing I've ever written, because it is freaking impossible, or not impossible, but it is so difficult to get right. But people don't appreciate it because they don't, I don't know, they just like to think that it's bad. But it's like you mentioned, it's not just men, it's across the board. But the thing about it being wish fulfillment, and that wish fulfillment aspect of it being what makes it negative, I find tends to be men who talk about that. It's like, oh, bodice rippers and mommy porn and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is that it's not. Yeah, I don't know. I find it annoying, but it's also, then you also get then other people who find fault with fantasy, and you find fault with like action, like, because that's actually kind of the other thing is when we talk about romance genre being wish fulfillment to women, in a lot of ways, for example, action movies, and I almost want, not necessarily hyper violent movies, but war movies where the men go into war and they win the battle. It feels to me as a woman, I suppose, kind of like that's wish fulfillment writing for men. But nobody really wants to talk about that. And I'm like, well, but it comes down to that whole thing is there are certain things that certain types, or not, I don't want to say certain types of people, but certain people, where regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of race, regardless of upbringing, regardless of literally anything, there are certain things that people want and that they dream and that they wish they could experience and that they long for, and that writing those things into stories actually is what makes stories have a heart, if I can put it that way. If that gives it like a life and a like breathing air and having a soul and a spirit. That's the kind of thing, it's that commonality of longing that people have between them, regardless of anything else. It's that thing that we all have in common. And putting that into a story, I can't see where that is actually the wrong thing to do. But people act like it's like really bad. Anyway. And then Michael also said a lot of readers enjoy wish fulfillment stories because they can get into them easy and they sell like hotcakes. So the naysayers can go jump in a river. I agree with you. No, that is so true. It's that's always the thing that I also like tend to say, because when someone is like, oh no, people just want their wishes, like wish fulfillment writing. They just want to read someone else's wish fulfillment writing, and they don't want to put too much thought in it, and and then I'm kind of thinking, but okay, but if it sells like hotcakes, like you're saying, is it really that bad if it works? I'm not saying do it cynically. I mean, you get people who do kind of wish fulfillment stories, but not, and that's kind of where I kind of draw a line where I say that's a bad thing, is that if it's a wish fulfillment story that you want to write, isn't it better to do something that's about your wishes, in the sense that you can make it real and you can make it personal and you can actually make it really touching? Whereas if you cynically use, wish fulfillment as a way to simply to attract readers and attract money, then that feels a bit like dodgy and wrong to me, because yeah, I don't know, it feels cynical and dark and I don't like that kind of idea. So you get that from, like, for example, people telling ghostwriters to write wish fulfillment stories for readers because that's kind of how they think they're going to make a lot of money. And that, for me, kind of, I have to say, feels a bit, I don't know, it feels like there's a line in there somewhere and those people are just really crossing it in all the wrong ways, and can't say that I technically really very much approve of that. But I agree completely that naysayers of wish fulfillment writing might as well go jump in a river. But yeah, so DL also says, all right, I'm back. Yeah, welcome back, DL. I you just missed a bit of a chat that Michael and I had about like wish fulfillment writing and stuff. So I'm not sure if you if you heard like any portions of that, but yeah, I was just going to ask what would be your opinion, and then you shared your comments. So let's share. Okay, he says, I don't mind wish fulfillment in writing, but I'm not that crazy about self inserts in stories. Yeah, it comes down, I think, for me, with regards to that, is I think it has to do with, like I said, you missed that part, so I'll just quickly repeat myself there for a few minutes. It has to do with, okay, yeah, you just said, nope, I was on the phone, so I'm just going to quickly just repeat a few things that are pertinent to this point you made about self-inserts. I think the problem with self-inserts is you're not going to put your character through the things that you need to put a character through in order to write a good story. And you're not going to give them flaws because you want people to see you in the story, but not obviously the real you, but the you that you wish the whole world would see you being, which is this like super positive, super perfect, super idealistic version. I want to say cardboard cutout that looks kind of like you, but really isn't you. And it's not to say that it's bad and that you're a bad person and you suck, but it's just the fact of the matter is that all people are imperfect, and that is why I believe characters should be imperfect too. Because if there's one thing that readers cannot relate to, it's actually perfection. I don't really think there's a way to authentically get people to relate to a perfect character, because yeah, if you're perfect, how do you feel for them? How do you empathize? Because it's that whole thing of, oh dear, this supermodel thinks she's ugly, kind of thing. You know, that it's not necessarily, not to say, you know, I'm not talking about like mental health issues or anything like that, just putting that inside, but like just kind of like that kind of feeling of, oh, this person is perfect, but now they're trying to tell me that their life sucks, and they're like, no, like, you don't understand anything. So, and that's kind of the thing that annoys me the heck out of self inserts. But you also, in the same breath, I think you get stories that actually do have a lot of self inserts, but that probably end up getting a pass because we didn't realize that that was what was going on. And the reason why we didn't realize is because the writer was aware enough of this kind of potential pitfall to avoid it. So I think, if I recall correctly, for example, J.K. Rowling, I'm saying Rowling. J.K. Rowling actually said that the reason why Hermione and Ron Weasley and Harry Potter ended up together, spoiler warning, but anyway, random aside there, was because it was wish fulfillment. And then you kind of realize, but then so Hermione was, and then she also at some stage also said that she was most like Hermione. And then you're like, okay, so Hermione was kind of like a wish fulfillment character there, but for like 7 books, I never realized. And I was actually actively writing while reading those books, so you're kind of like, well played, well done. But like, so it can be done. I'm not, I don't like when I see wish fulfillment writing. For example, what actually happened, and that's what actually got me onto the subject, is quite recently I edited a book for a guy that wrote a story when he was like a teenager, and he decided to expand this story into like a 3-book series now that he's an adult, but he didn't really go into the first book that he wrote too much with editing. And then he asked me to do like a structural and content critique on the first book in the series, and I just I felt so bad going through that book because I could actually tell that this is like the very first thing that this guy wrote, and that it's like very much, you know, that self-insert kind of, this guy's going on adventures, but it's just like passive character, too perfect, and more than that, if he is stuffed up as a character and this happens, um then all the world still adores this guy. And I'm like, well, this guy's being an asshole. Why is everyone not calling him out for that? And then you're like, oh yeah, okay, it's because this guy he's engaging in like this kind of fantasy life for himself that he put himself into the story with. And that kind of sucks. I don't like that. But it's not necessarily I never, when I went and I did the critique, I actually never said, well, obviously this is wish fulfillment and therefore it is inferior and you should consider going through it. What I instead did was I actually called out even if I could see it, what I did was I said, listen, you need to change. If this guy is going to be a perfect character, he actually has to be perfect, or otherwise, give him flaws, but don't let people just look over them. Stuff like that. And the reason why I did that is that it's kind of, in a sense, wish fulfillment to me is a lot like cliches. People have this way of saying, oh, it's a cliche in a story. And the fact of the matter is, it's not really a cliche that makes a story bad. And nor is it actually the wish fulfillment aspect that makes a story bad. There are other technical things that you need to sort out that actually make all these kinds of things like wish fulfillment writing and self inserts and stuff like cliches and tropes and things just work. But yeah, for me, it's not about like having the self insert, it's about doing it properly. Let's just see. A lot of comments have been coming in, so let's see. DL also said if it's a biography or memoir or something like that, that's okay, but I don't like it in fictional stories. Yeah, this is in connection, I believe, to when I was talking about characters being too perfect and being like all, everyone else. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but also in the same breath is like when people are in a biography or they're writing a biography and they're not willing to accept that they have a part in things going wrong in their own lives sometimes, not in the sense that I'm trying to victim blame, but more literally in that all people, if you're involved in a scenario and something goes wrong in that scenario, you were still involved in that scenario. So either it's always other people's faults or sometimes it's your fault. And if you can't admit that when it really is your fault, then I don't really believe in like continuing to read that person's biography because I can't believe him anymore, because that's a bit weird. So in that aspect of it, I don't think and that's possibly why I'm not brave enough to write a biography yet, because for me it's just I don't know if I want to be that honest with people yet, so I'll see maybe one day, but right now that's a bit like a bit too far for me. And then just before I go, hi Ava, welcome, thanks so much for joining, I really appreciate it. And then see, Michael said, I find a lot of characters that I have a lot in me, a lot of me in them are fairly flawed, but that might just be my self-esteem issues. Yeah, it could be your self-esteem issues. I'm not going to deny that, but in the same breath, I think if you can put a lot of yourself in a character and you can still make them seriously flawed, it's actually a sign of being a good writer, because like I mentioned, no one relates to characters who aren't flawed. I don't think it's really possible, and that's probably, I want to say, why, for example, movies like the recent Superman movies don't work really well. Because can anyone actually tell me anything bad about Clark Kent as a person in the movies? Because he's just like this plain vanilla guy, and I can't really think of anything. So for me, I think that would be a prime example of why I wouldn't write a character like that, because people can't connect to him the same way you would connect to, say, Batman, who is completely stuffed up as a, like, psychologically speaking, but like we still relate to him because he's messed up but he's doing something, and we kind of like that as people. So that's my preference anyway. I'm a Batman girl. But yeah, let's see. Ava says, life repeats itself. A story without cliche would seem awkward. Yeah, absolutely, because cliches are cliches because they work. In a sense, is that it's kind of cliches if you think of stories in terms of almost like as an evolutionary practice. Cliches are the fittest parts of stories because they made an impact and they keep making an impact and people keep using them because they keep working. So if it works that well, why would you avoid it? And the fact of the matter is that even the avoidance of cliches are cliches. So you can't win by trying to avoid cliches. The only thing you can really do is to not make your writing so shallow that people feel like everything about your writing is cliched. And that's you do, good writing technique, writing from the heart, writing like things that you are interested in, even if it is like wish fulfillment writing or anything like that. That actually helps make stories feel less cliched and bland and stuff like that. So I am actually a fan of just not worrying about it and just writing the best story that you can write, because in the end, if a story is good, nobody's going to care whether or not it's your wish that's being fulfilled in the story, and no one's going to care whether or not it's a cliche, because yeah, and then that's kind of the thing. It's about writing a good story. So DL also said it's the way that they incorporate them into the story that makes it. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely just the way, and that's why I'm saying that technique. If you have good writing technique and you do things, not just some people put. I almost want to say cynically again, the way that I mentioned about like wish fulfillment writing. If you're going to do cynical writing where you're trying to insert things that are just the barest bones because you're trying to just like attract an audience and you're doing it not because you love the thing that you're doing, I think people can tell. And that's kind of where this like whole thing about like, for example, cliches and self-inserts in stories and wish fulfillment writing, stuff like that, where it becomes really obvious because you're not actually giving the reader enough to actually move past that kind of detail about it. And that becomes the only thing that a reader starts seeing in a story instead of actually seeing the heart and the actual like meaning and the love that went into creating it. And yeah, and DL says I was talking about self-inserts in general. I don't like the perfect character in any genre or anything. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I already just recently talked about it, so I don't want to repeat. But I'm not a perfect character kind of girl. It just like I don't like it. They creep me out. Actually, perfect characters kind of creep me out, and I don't like them, and I don't relate to them at all. So I struggle to imagine how readers could actually relate to them. And then Ava says, I missed the example of the self-insert. Yeah, I was actually we were talking about wish fulfillment writing in general, and then DL made the point that he can still deal with wish fulfillment in writing, but he's not a fan of self-inserts. And then I was actually talking about, for example, I think Hermione Granger in Harry Potter is a self-insert character for J.K. Rowling, because it's just, if you put like some of the stuff she said in like interviews about the whole Ron Hermione romance thing, and when people asked who she's the most like, she said she's the most like Hermione. You kind of get together that okay, there's some kind of like self-insert quality to that there. But in the same breath, she did it so well that I just feel like, you know what, I'm not even going to falter for it because she really did it great. I loved that series, and I loved her Hermione character specifically a lot. So anyway, and then Ava says, I don't think I know how to write my own self, so I don't think it's myself, but my experiences definitely play a role on the more philosophical level. Yeah, I think that's something Michael actually also said earlier, is that you write what you experienced in a sense, and that, and especially if you can complement that with research to give it more depth. Yeah, depth. So I hate that word actually, and it's the one word that's always like my kryptonite. I'm going to say kryptonite, but I always pronounce it wrong, so sorry. But DEPTH, it gives it that. Okay, so I think because we do kind of put our own experience in it, I think all writers do that, and it happens naturally. For example, for me, part of the reason why I write is actually to process my things that I have gone through and the emotions around that, and to give it like a positive kind of outlet in a way. So it's definitely part of that, but I don't think necessarily doing that would be considered a self-insertion, because it's just finding commonality between you and another character, whether or not that character ends up resembling you in any kind of way is kind of up to you, I suppose. Avis says, he's alien though, Superman. He's not human. He doesn't need to be flawed. Yeah, but I don't know. I think Superman. Well, yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from, because it's like having like a Greek god or someone coming down to Earth and having him be a like. Although though to the Greek gods, I have to say in mythology they're stuffed up themselves. So I'm kind of, that's a very bad example I chose, but you know, if we're talking about someone holy or a deity or anyone like that, then yeah, it's going to be very difficult to sell the idea that they're flawed at all. But at the same time, I still struggle to think that I don't know. I honestly, when I see Superman, I kind of like him because he's such a good, oh gosh darn good guy. But like I said, when it's like Batman, Superman, I'm always going to go for Batman, because Batman is like, yeah, just I don't know. I like imperfect characters. So when people say it doesn't need to be flawed, it's like, yeah, but from a writer's perspective, it's actually better that it is, because yeah, it's actually. But that's an interesting thing to think about though, because he is the one perfect character that I can think of that is not flawed, and yet somehow he does have a big following, and it spanned generations of people. So how did they do that? I'm curious. Maybe I should. That's something to think about. I'll put that away for later. So, and then she said, Batman is human, so his flaws make him a good hero. No, absolutely, and that's what I love about him. Ava asked then, are you guys basically talking about the writers who whip out a common trope heavy with cliches in an aim to make money off books like it's easy? Yeah, that's what I'm. It's not what the other guys were talking about, but that's where my line is drawn when it comes to stuff like inserting cliches and tropes and like wish fulfillment and stuff. Is doing it like to just try to gather money from it. And yeah, she says I've read some of those. Me too, and it annoys the crap out of me, because I'm trying not to be like that, like real writing purist. Like real writers do not do things like this, but I feel that if you're not doing writing for the love of it, then I don't really like the idea of people writing, because I think they're doing it wrong. So maybe I'm wrong, but it is like, um, yeah. So, but that's kind of where I feel is like, no, don't do that. Please don't do that to my beloved art and craft, because that is not something cool. And then Ava says, I think Hermione is relatable to the brainy girls growing up, though. She'd be my self insert if I had written Harry Potter too. Yeah, I think honestly mine too. And I think it's kind of like the bookish, nerdish kind of girl. It's kind of me. And also the fact, because of the fact that she was so imperfect. So she had like this razor sharp wit, but she was sometimes a bit mean, and she was a bit bitchy sometimes, and she was, so she didn't have this like angelic kind of, oh, she's perfect, wow, I wish I was her. It's more like, oh well, she is actually me, and I could put myself, that's kind of where you can put yourself into a situation, and through that into Harry and Ron's situation as well, because you kind of had commonality with her. So that's what I liked about her a lot. uh, but then Ava says, I'm more like Malfoy though. Oh, is that a good thing? But hmm. But then yeah, Ava says he's like a Thor, so I'm assuming she's talking about Clark Kent still. Kind of, but I think Thor is, at least in the movies. I didn't watch or didn't read any of the comics, but the movie Thor is very like impulsive and easy to get angry, and he makes mistakes, and that's kind of how the whole first movie of Thor happened. So in a sense, he kind of made mistakes and stuff as well, which I think made him more relatable. So, and then Eva also says, but they have issues, the gods, absolutely. And then she also said, Superman is an orphan, so he doesn't have family baggage. Laugh out loud, not much at least. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, he doesn't have baggage, period. I think, but I think, like, was it Man of Steel, where the father, spoiler warning, got sucked into a tornado? I think that was kind of where it's from, is to give him baggage, but somehow they managed to not give him baggage, even though his father died, so it's like, okay. I don't think that worked out very well. And then Ava says, sorry, I showed up and took over the comments. My bad. Yeah, I'm still, it's no problem. I don't think it's actually fun to have a lot of comments to talk with. I'm just trying to, like, not miss anything and also just, like, talk about it as well, because it's no use if I'm just sitting here reading the whole time. So. And then Ava says, I haven't read much at all lately, and I haven't written in days, in a funk, I guess. Yeah, same here, but I'm hoping to actually get back to writing, so yeah, fingers crossed. Answering the question of when the next writing is going to happen, well, we still need to start writing tonight, so I will at one stage actually we will still get around to writing. If you still want to write, let me know in the comments if you want to try and what you will be working on. But for this next evening writing that I have, is my next evening writing will be next week, 5 p.m. South African time. But I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that's not what you refer to. So, but the guys, I think the guy DL just actually said that DL Tillery and Aphrodite have one tonight, unless something comes up, and I'll be doing mine tomorrow. But hopefully it won't be a 7.5 hour stream. Nice. No, I hope to actually join some writing sprints, but the unfortunate thing with the time zones being what they are is I sometimes miss them because I'm sleeping. Because, yeah, this is 5 p.m. in the evening for me at the moment. So you guys are in the morning, and then by the time it's your evening, I'm halfway asleep or fully asleep. Getting back to the comments. I just write whatever the hell I want to, and if the readers don't like it, oh well. Yeah, I think that's the only way to do it, because I believe in that saying where they say the only way to displease absolutely everyone is trying to please everyone. So I just write what I want, and then I edit to make it like publicly consumable. But other than that, people have a choice about whether or not they like it, and at least if the people do like it, it means that I kind of found my tribe. But it's not necessarily that I'm trying to pander to anyone, because that just feels to me like you are kind of going to lose something of your own writing by doing that. So I try to avoid it. And then Ava also agrees. She says the best way to go about it. And then she also says my husband is a big comic nerd. Very, very cool. I'm actually so cool. And then reading more comments. Yeah, absolutely. The perfect hero is one trope. The flawed hero is another. Yeah, that's the whole thing about tropes and cliches, is that even avoiding a trope is kind of still a trope. So you can't. I don't think you can actually. I don't think you can actually avoid a trope altogether. And then she asked if DL's sprint is going to be 6.5 hours, and then he said maybe. Fun. All right. And then Ava also says the babe isn't napping, so I'm a try, but thinking is hard. Talking is easy though. Hashtag obvious. And then yeah. No, I hope you can write. So if you, hopefully, fingers crossed, it works out for you. I'm not going to put too much pressure on you, because that would suck of me. But yeah. And then she asks if the comment does it censor hell, Or did she just say a nicer word, laugh out loud? Yes, see, I try not to say fuck on live television or live video the whole time. And although I actually do use it quite often in my daily language, I try to avoid it. But then when people leave a comment and it's like, oh, he censored himself, do I say this as what I think it is, or do I just go for a softer version? And then I went for the softer version, and now I actually found out that no, I would have said the F word, but it felt nice to censor it myself. But hell works too, I guess. I'm sorry, DL, I mangled your comment. So that is kind of like just perfect, yeah. But yeah, she says I always say hacking instead of fuck online, laugh out loud. Yeah, what the heck? Yeah. I kind of do try, but it doesn't always work. And yeah, and it would be kind of hypocritical because for me in any case, to try to avoid the F bomb, because in my actual fiction, I don't. I really don't. My teenage characters all speak like I want to say teenage characters. So lots and lots and lots of like F bombs are littered throughout my story. It's not necessarily something I'm proud of, but it's just the way it is. But the fact of the matter is, so if I always avoid the F bomb, it's just not going to be realistic. And I do actually, when I read like excerpts from my story and there's an F bomb in there, I just read it out loud. So I just, I just like, yeah, I just go for it because it's why bother? It's not. Maybe one day I'm going to regret this decision if I want to monetize my channel, but for now I'm so far away from monetizing this channel that it's unlikely that it's ever going to happen. And then just back to the hacking conversation. I always say hacking instead of fuck online. What the hacking? I write whatever the hacking I want to, laugh out loud, and then Michael says I write effing a lot, or the F word. So that's actually a good way to do it, but for me, where it's unlikely my characters would actually use the phrase effing anything, I just went with straight on cursing because yeah, it just like, yeah, it doesn't work. It honestly doesn't work for me. I don't know. It works for some other people and in certain situations with certain kinds of characters, but in my situation with my characters where they're like, you know, I'm struggling to imagine there's this 18-year-old savage who basically kills people in the first introduction that you have of him in the book, and then he'll say like, what the F? No, it's not going to happen. It just does not work. But yeah. So let's see. Ava also says, I wrote a monologue-style short story from the perception of a man on death row for several murders. It was my remake of Bonnie and Clyde, based on the prompt, What is Love? That is a very interesting concept. I am fascinated. Okay. And then it's about 2,500 words, I think, and I think over 40 of them are fuck. Nice. And then none of my characters said it was too many, except one who said one was too many. Yeah, I know there's always that one person who's like, goodness, can't you just keep them out? I'm like, no. I mean, in your situation as well, that makes 100% pure sense. And to just have him say fuck, because why not? And especially on death row, it's not like yeah, I completely get your point. So I don't agree with that person who's like one isn't too many, because yeah, for me it's something that comes up. So, and DL says, I usually just say the word. I don't care if I get monetized or anything like this. I just try to be considerate around people who I'm not sure if they will be offended by it or not. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will not, for example, say it in front of a reverend necessarily, and I will not like, for example, when I went to my business meeting with people and I'm there in a professional capacity, then I will use more professional language. So I try to avoid like any kind of like informality of any sort. So kind of like F bombs and stuff kind of get brushed aside temporarily until I get back out. And Then I'm back to my kind of, I don't want to say vulgar, because I don't see myself as particularly vulgar, but yeah, like I mentioned, the words do come up, and it doesn't particularly bother me to say them, especially when I feel it's deserved, if the situation deserves it. And then Ava says his name was Benny, her name Claudette, and she lives up in Chicago by that version, and he's dead by now. Ah, interesting. I think this is a very interesting story, Ava. I love the concept. And then DL says, I used to be fascinated by Bonnie and Clyde. Me too. I actually used to find kind of any stories about like criminal, I want to say legends, interesting. And even now I still do, but I kind of lost, I think because of the fact that I drifted off towards other like kind of crime stories and so on, that I kind of just lost track of Bonnie and Clyde in a way. Strange to think about it that way, but Ava says, if I get monetized ever in my life, it will be on my terms too, ADL Stewart. I get it. I like real. Yeah, it's the same way I feel about it, is that it's kind of like trying to strike a balance, because you do want to be like put forward a kind of good version of yourself on camera, but in the same breath you also want to be authentic. So for me, being authentic means that if the F-bomb comes to my mind when I'm speaking, it should kind of go there. And but yeah, it's still something I'm trying to figure out for myself. And then I'll find it and send it over if you want to see my version of it, unless I reread it and hated it, of course. Well, I'm not. And then, yep, Ava writes, if you want to pay me, then pay me for being me. No, absolutely. You don't want to be like a fake person. And then it's just one long dialogue. He's talking the entire time. That's interesting. I'm really interested. That sounds like a really fun, and he's answering the question himself of what is love, and it's lewd. I was kind of thinking that it would be. That doesn't surprise me at all that it is a bit lewd, because it doesn't make sense that it wouldn't be, if I can put it that way. So. And then DL also says, I live in Arkansas, which is where they were at the majority of the time. So it's like a hometown hero, or, well, anti-hero, laugh out loud something. Yeah, I think it's kind of, in a sense, almost like, I want to say in Missouri with Jesse James. And that's kind of where I like the Old West outlaws a lot more. So that's kind of where my interest was. But although I also have to say, now I'm kind of like, did I pick the right state for where Jesse James came from? I think it is. But I'm not sure. I'd have to go Google it. And then, because I know a lot of people like make a thing about, oh, Jesse James was here, or Billy the Kid grew up here, or Doc Holliday, and so forth and so on. They also have that kind of feeling about them. And Ava says, I'd have to retype it, her short story. I only have a paper copy. It's fairly dated at this point. Yeah, I saw a spot Jesse James signed his name in the Mark Twain caves. Yeah, and that's in, I want to say Hannibal, Missouri. So yeah, but that's, I think now that you said that, I actually remember, I think it's right that they're from, if they're not from that specific state, they were quite active there. And then she says, if you ever go, try to go when it's very slow. They'll take you off the beaten path a bit. That sounds awesome. I would love to go there one day. So yeah, definitely something to try. Adding it to my bucket list. All right, guys. I think actually maybe I'm finally caught up on the comments, so I'm really glad about that. And then the also says, I've been there, but I've never seen that spot. But oh yes, she says it's a very small path off the main trail, and it was just my husband and I when we saw it. Yeah, and it might also be like the people might not send a lot of people there, because if too many people are around and stuff, that probably going to damage that, that etching or the name or whatever the way it's written onto the cave, because people suck, but also just like the air we breathe on like cave walls and stuff actually have an impact on them. So that could possibly also be why they don't just take people there, just maybe. Yeah. So only one of us could go back at the time, and it was too narrow. Yeah, it's interesting. So one day I will probably go try to sort of see that place. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I've heard that as well. There's a lot of places still around today simply because Jesse James dropped it once. It's interesting to think of it that way, but yeah. So he kind of did that place a service. They just didn't realize it. So interesting to think about. All right, guys. So we've already been chatting for an hour, so I think it's time for us. It's time for us to start talking about writing. Let's get to the writing sprint part of this. I think let's start with a 10-minute sprint, and then we can, and then we can see if we want to go for a bit longer for the next sprint. Let me just open up my timer. Excellent. Okay, so just before I start, I see Ava says, if you're around to see the caves, you'd better hit me up. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll let you know. And DL says, 6.5 hours to go. Fantastic. I have to say though, I'm really like, one day I want to like try an 8-hour like writing live feed, but I'm terrified of the idea of trying to sustain that level of interest for that long, especially if I'm the only person in that live stream. So I don't know if I'm that brave. So maybe one day I'll say, okay, no, today is the writing marathon, and we're finally doing this thing. I'm doing 8 hours of writing. Who's with me? But for now, I don't think I'm that brave. So yeah. So at least for now, I think we're talking about maximum 90 minutes still. But yeah, all right. So let's get to the writing part. I'm going to count down from 5, and gosh, yeah. The owl says my stream was supposed to be just about 2 hours, and well, yeah. Okay, yeah. So maybe hopefully, if one day if I have like an 8-hour sprint, it's because we got so like stuck in the interest and just in a writing zone. That would be awesome. So hopefully one day I get to go through that as well. We'll see. All right, counting down from 5, and then I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, time. How did you guys do? I ended up starting to work on this communications plan because, yeah, I definitely need to get this out of the way. And I wrote the massive sum total of 56 words, but then I did have to go find the information I needed in a 100-word report. So maybe it's not that bad, but let me know in the comments how, or in the chat, how you guys did. And then Ava, while I was writing, Ava just like left a comment saying, get like 4 to 5 hours in one long stream, then people can duck out to live life and come back. Always 4 to 5 people in one long stream, and then people could duck out and live life and come back. And always 1 or 2 there to keep it going. Make some games, do it on a day that I can be around all day, laugh out loud. Cool. No, okay, I'll keep that in mind. Definitely to keep that in mind. Maybe one day I'll do like a marathon stream as I'm counting down to my next book release or something like that. Maybe. We'll see. That might actually not be a bad idea. Interesting. But I'll think about it. But yeah, so on my side, unfortunately, also I want to ask if you guys want to share excerpts again, because tonight I won't be able to unless I start writing my own stuff a bit later. But at least for now, I think I just want to at least get like the big parts of this plan out of the way, by which I mean like the overarching goals and stuff like that, because that's definitely going to help me out a lot. So we'll see. All right, so DL actually said 321 words. Well done. That's an epic amount for 10 minutes. Well done. But yeah, so let me know if you want to share excerpts, DL, but no pressure. I'm just sitting here and I'll have to wait, I suppose, a little bit. But yeah, no, but like, I have to say, like, I love these writings. So I'm starting to think that maybe trying to do a longer one would actually be a good idea. But I would probably have to do it earlier in the day for me to have it work, because I do get to a stage in the evening as it starts getting darker where my brain's just like, words. What are words? I don't understand words. Do you eat words? And then it doesn't quite work to try and get past like where I was at that stage. And then I just kind of say good night to you guys and all those kinds of things, because I don't want to be too random. Although I'm pretty good at being random. But yeah, so DL says, give me a second and I'll share. Okay, cool. So I'll just give him a second. And yeah. And then Eva says, I didn't get any productive words. That's okay. It happens. I'm a little bit like, a little frustrated with myself, but at the same breath, because I decided to work on this communications plan, because I'm a bit worried about the amount of work I would need to do if I only started on Monday. But yeah, I really wish I was working on my own stuff right now. It sounds horrible to say, but it's true. Because I haven't actually been able to actually work on my own writing for I want to say 3 weeks, and that's very long for me. It gets really annoying. DL also said, laugh out loud, I write better at night. I actually do also, I write better, but I don't speak better. That's actually where my problem comes in, is that I can't, I can still like type, and it's actually good when I'm preferably even a little bit tired when I'm writing, because if I'm tired when I'm writing, my inner critic and my inner censor are both asleep, so I just get some lovely hours of uninhibited writing where I can just get stuff onto the page and I can get back to it later. And usually, funnily enough, like a year from now, if I ever get back to a book and I edit it, then I find that, oh yes, I actually managed to be coherent in those places. So it doesn't actually make my writing worse, but I feel like when I'm tired, you guys know what I'm like when I am tired. When I'm really tired, I go off on tangents, I don't finish sentences. It just goes really bad. I feel like it goes like really badly. So I just kind of like cut it off like a little bit earlier rather than going into the night. And yeah. It's maybe it's my own perfectionism. You guys can let me know, like, and I'm not doing this to fish for compliments, but maybe I'm not that bad, but I can't tell because I have like very high standards for myself and for doing anything like live television. So yeah, I get self-conscious when I know like I'm tired and it's like words just rushing out. And do they make sense? Am I speaking correctly? Do my sentences, yeah, all that kind of stuff, I kind of avoid that. I kind of, as I get towards like 9 in the evening, my time, then my brain's just like, no, we're not going to speak anymore. Please don't make me. So that's kind of why I stop early in my evening instead. Yeah, so let's see. Ava says, I write better when I don't have any other responsibilities over my head. So when I'm not the only parent home, chores done, etc. Most of the time, that means evenings after bedtime, but on the husband's off days, it can be any time. If his work schedule is consistent, I write consistently, I think. Yeah, and I don't want to say I'm fortunate in that aspect, but I don't really, for me, I don't have kids, so for me, I don't have to worry about that as much. But I find that when I have, like you say, other responsibilities, like for example, right now I have this big project that I have to finish in like 2 weeks, and so I'm working on that right now instead of writing my own story. Even though I wish I was working on my own story, because I'm just a little bit feeling like I'm going to induce like a panic kind of feeling if I'm leaving it off too long, because I only have so much time. These people are counting on me, so I just want them to not be disappointed. And so, yeah, that's why I'm sitting here on a Saturday night sprinting a communications plan that's not even my own. But on the positive side, it's going to pay me well, so I can't complain too much. And also, I enjoy it, so that's also cool. Let's see. DL shared some of his excerpts, so let's see. The walls of his room were covered in ink and marker. Sorry, let's try that again, because of course I have an alarm going off for no reason. Okay. The walls of his room were covered in ink and marker from where our friends had tagged and doodled on them. Blocking his closet door was a worn-out blue cloth couch that had clothes thrown over the arms and the back. There are some more, let's see. The clothes were not just confined to the couch, but were also scattered about the floor in various places, one in which Molly had made herself a bed in. Against the wall that was adjacent to the door stood a small wooden TV stand that held up a large grey box TV. Across from the TV stand, a queen's mattress and a box spring rested up to the floor. I approached the bed and shook Derek awake, which seemed to be an everyday occurrence. Yo, it's 2 in the afternoon. Get up. He sat up, still entangled in the sheets of the bed, but I could see a flash of his upper thigh, so I knew he wasn't wearing anything under the sheet. Laid beside him, all wrapped up, was Holly, who was still asleep and probably no more dressed than Derek was. As he sat with his eyes partially open, he slowly analyzed the room, as if he was waking up from a night of partying and was uncertain of where he had fallen asleep at. After surveying his room, he glanced toward me as he stood from his bed. Hand me those pants, he said as he pointed at the end of the couch, then bent over to pick up a pair of boxes from the floor. I stood by the end of the couch waiting while he finished dressing himself. After getting dressed, he grabbed a blue and white plaid hurley cap off the floor and placed it upon his nappy hair. As we started to exit the room, he reached for a pack of Marlboro Reds from the TV, retrieved 2 cigarettes from the pack, tucking one behind each of his ears. Remind me to get some more today, he said as he tossed the pack onto the bed. Interesting. It's very nice, very good description again. You're really good at description, I find. So, well done, DL. Thanks for sharing. And then Ava says, just going back a little bit because I saw I was missing some comments in between, but I just didn't want to interrupt like the flow of the paragraphs. So sorry about that, Ava, but let's getting back to her. She says, I enjoy your streams. Don't fret over if you're doing okay. The smaller audience, I tend to talk a lot in the chat because there's less discussion otherwise. Yeah, it's definitely. I actually love that you guys talk so much because it gives me something to respond to. I don't like sitting here trying to fill empty air. So for me, is like a yeah. So for me, it's a good thing. I like it, and then because that's actually I just saw the next comment from Ava, which is but also sharing every comment can really slow the stream down. So I feel kind of bad. No need to share them all or keep up if it's distracting. I can tag if I'm anticipating acknowledgement. No, actually, for me, it's just it's kind of I see you guys if you're in the chat. I kind of see you guys as just as like important to the live stream as being as if you're on camera with me at the moment. So I love interacting with you, and if there's like a discussion going on, then I actually love acknowledging as many as the comments of as many of the comments as possible because I think it makes for an interesting discussion more than me sitting here proclaiming things, if I can put it that way. So don't feel bad about too many comments. If I feel like I'm not coping, then I will say, guys, I'm starting to skip over comments now. And then you guys know, and I assume you guys will forgive me. It's just that when sometimes I don't make sense to myself, or I think I'm making sense, but I'm wondering if I'm making sense to other people because I'm tired. So my brain's kind of going off in a million directions because the more tired I get, the more random my brain becomes. I kind of get scattered all over the place. And usually it's a good thing if my brain does that, but when I'm trying to communicate verbally, it gets complicated because I can see relationships between a lot of really random stuff. But getting other people to see the same relations is going to be like it's a bit of a bitch. So I try to avoid doing that, but it's hard, especially when I'm tired and impulsive. So that's kind of where I feel like my quality of my videos go a bit bad if that happens. So uh okay, Ava says, I could maybe dig up a poem. Do you guys want a poem? Laugh out loud. Yes, absolutely. Go share a poem. Share a poem. Yes, I want to see the poem. And then I'm just noticing, sorry, I'm just like, you see, now we're getting to the random tangents thing. For some reason or the other, this camera is changing the lighting because nothing of my lighting is changing, but like 1 minute I'm blue, now I'm orange, now I'm kind of in between, so it's a bit random. Anyway, back to the main story. And then Ava also said, scattered brain chats are fun too, laugh out loud. Good to know. Good to know. I'll keep that in mind. No, but then I'm glad because yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm trying not to be too random, but it's really hard. I'm a random person, people. I'm really random. Not trying to say it in like a random way, but yeah. Anyway, Ava asks, what sort of poetry do you guys like? I like any poetry, actually. So you are welcome to share whatever you think is good, Ava. I'm looking forward to it. So, while you're digging up, maybe we should do another writing sprint, and then you can share it after we did the next writing sprint. Ava, I hope that sounds good, because then it gives you time to find whatever you feel is the one that you want to share, and then we get some writing done. And I don't have to fill dead air with too much randomness and make things weird. So, cool. All right. So I'm going to say, I think let's do 15 minutes this time because 10 minutes felt a bit short. So let's do that, and then I'll see you guys in 15. I'm counting down from 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, guys, time. Let me know how you did. Because, yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I think I did, let's see, 150 words this time. So I'm speeding up a little bit ever so slightly, which is always a good thing. So let me know how you guys did. And then I'm going to read what Ava said while I was sprinting. So let's see. She says, I picked on the picked one that was shorter and that maybe would hold up the character limits and structure restraints of this comment section. I'm gonna post it now in case I'm distracted. It's called The Box. Okay. In a box on the shelf in the closet, behind the stacks of odds and ends, there are some memories that have been tucked away from yesterday, holding the moments that it did begin. In a box on the shelf in the closet, snuggled up against the holiday decor, lie secrets of the heart, covered in dust and slivers of rust, preserved moments of feelings before. In a box on the shelf in the closet, amid the winter coats and scarves alike, is contained a part of my soul from a love faded, heart jaded, deep in the corner, out of sight. In a box on the shelf in the closet, hidden from prying eyes of friends, finds a treasure of the past, tied up in dreams and internal screams of a tragic true love's end. In a box on the shelf in the closet is you. Oh, that is a nice one. Well done. And she said that's 147 words for the sprint. Well done. Be right back, she says. And then DL says he wrote 487 words. And then he also shared his excerpt. So let's see. After we left his room, we navigated through the horde of dogs in the living room and into the kitchen. Derek grabbed a cereal from the top of the fridge and a plate from the dish rack, then joined me at a circular table that was tucked into the far corner of the room. So, what's the plan for the day? He asked as he scooped some of the dry cereal up onto his spoon. Well, I made us a MySpace profile last night and put the Fog Boys logo as our profile pic. Do we have any friends on there yet? I doubt it, I said with a slight laugh. I just figured that we would need it for when we did start making music, so people can actually hear it and become fans. All right. Derek continued to chew and crunch on the cereal. Do you want to do a photo shoot sometime soon and put those pictures up? Sure, we can do it today if you'll want. Okay, all right. Well, I didn't know if you had to work or not since you're in your subway clothes. Yeah, I just got off and came straight over. First shift, fuck that noise. Derek chuckled as he stood and put his plate back in the dish rack. I'm going to go and let Holly know that you're coming over to Patrick's. If you want to go on and wait in the car, you can. After a few minutes of waiting, Derek came out of the house while placing one of the chewed cigarettes between his lips. He walked around my Mountaineer and hopped in the passenger seat. Do you have a lighter? He asked as he shifted through the center console of the car. I think Squeaks stole mine the other day. Why are you asking me? I don't smoke. No, but you always have a lighter. Because you all can't keep up with yours, I said and laughed as I reached into my pocket and retrieved the lighter. As Derek lit his cigarette, I started the car. Hold up. Holly said she's coming. She's just got to get ready and see if she can find her makeup bag. Cool. Nice. Thanks for sharing, DL. Whew. Awesomeness. You guys are so talented. I'm so happy to have met you guys because you guys all have so much talent. I'm so impressed. I'm going to fangirl again. But I have to say that DL, it's giving away a little bit what the time period is that you set this in because the MySpace reference, I got that reference because I was there too. so I know more or less when this was happening. But yeah, very cool. All right, so I think, are we just going to? I think maybe we should just consider jumping straight back into a 15-minute chat, a 15-minute sprint, not chat, because we've chatted a lot already. So maybe we should do that. But yeah, I think unless there's, I'm just going to give it a few seconds for anyone to respond if they still want to respond. But otherwise, we can just go sprint some more. But let's see. But yeah, in the meantime, I have to say I'm actually surprised at how fast I got through my actual work. Because I thought it was going to take me forever because I was looking at my own my own, own communications plan, and I just realized that no, actually, I it's a lot easier when I'm doing this for other people. Probably my own perfectionism kicking my backside when I'm doing my own. But yeah, funny, funny how that works. DL says, yeah, because his excerpts are from his memoir, and so this was September of 2009. Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. And then DL also said, yep, I'm done for another sprint. Okay, so let's do another sprint. I'm going to count down and then I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. And time. How did you guys do? I think I did. What? Sorry, I'm a bit shocked. Suddenly I have negative. I don't know how that happened. Somehow I have negative 470 words in my Scrivener, which doesn't quite make sense, but I think it has to do with the amount of times I've deleted stuff. But anyway, so I think I did like 100. I'm going to say 140-ish words. I didn't, because it's not my own work. I'm not keeping track in my usual files, so I don't know exactly. But also, it's not a lot of words. But I got super distracted by my cat. But I don't know where she went now. Oh wait, she is actually right there. So yeah, she made chaos, and now she's very happy with herself. DL says he wrote 462 words. Well done. And then while we were sprinting, Ava also says, sorry, maybe I'm going to get a nap time, but I don't know yet. And it's rough on days when it's a hard maybe like this. Love and love. Don't apologize. I understand why things might be a bit difficult for you. So I don't. It's very awesome that you joined anyway, because I really appreciate the support. So 2 thumbs up. And then she also said, I had to write a collection of themed poems for a class once. I went with love because it's easier to relate to for readers. That was number 6. And each one follows the relationship. Oh, that's a nice idea. I like it. I like it a lot. We just change positions so that I don't have random cat ears behind my head. There we go. But yeah, so I think your poem idea sounds like a really cool one. And I really liked your poem. It's a nice one. Really sweet. Right, DL, are you feeling like you want to share an excerpt? Please do feel free if you want to. I'll wait a little bit to hear back from you. But yeah. In the meantime, I actually think that I'm going to stop here for the day, because I actually did what I had planned to do on Friday when I fell behind. So I think I'm going to stop now. And yeah, just I don't know if we are going to do more sprints. So let me know if you guys want to do more sprints, and we can talk about that as well. Right, DL says he is going to share an excerpt in a little bit, so giving him the time he needs. No pressure. Yeah. I'm trying to decide if I should try writing my own stuff now, because I'm kind of split on whether or not I should be working on my own stuff tonight. Ava just let me know she's just popping back in, and she asked how's it going. Well, I just mentioned just before you came on, I just mentioned that I think I'm finished with the communications planning that I was going to do for the weekend, but maybe not completely everything, but it's at least so that I think that now I feel more confident to just get into the rest of it on Monday. So that's awesome, because then I can rest up a bit for the rest of the weekend, which is also important because I'm doing 2 jobs at the same time. Pay me. All right. And then DL also just started sharing his excerpt. He says, here's the opening scene for my memoir. The night itself is hazy to me, but after all the retellings, I feel like I just lived it yesterday. It was a few minutes past 10 o'clock, and I had gotten off of work at Subway. As I exited the side door, I peered across the street through the dense fog. I could vaguely see a few guys resting on the steps of a house that me and my friends referred to as the Subway House. It was my friend Patrick's place. He lived there with his sister and one of our friends that had moved to Piggott a couple of months prior. I trod across the street and up to the two individuals on the porch, smoking cigarettes. The first mirrored me in several ways. He had crystal blue eyes and short brown hair and a small patch of fuzz on his chin. We were around the same height and a couple of inches shy of 6 feet. He was 19, same as me, though he was 5 months younger. We had shared the same name, Derek. Where we differed was in his physique. He was somewhat thicker than I was, and he had a patch of blonde dyed into his bangs, and he had a single snake-bite piercing on the left side of his mouth. The other was also akin in numerous ways to Derek. He too was around the same stature and had short brown hair concealed by a green and black twisted hat. He was around the same build, but was more muscularly toned. He had a small goatee and a hatchet man earring in his right ear. He was 6 months older than me. Everyone called him Doobie, but his real name was Michael. He had moved from St. Louis to Arkansas a few months prior. Stewie, Doobie greeted me. Everybody referred to me by my last name as a means to differentiate between me and the other Derek of our group of friends. What's up, bud? Another slow night at work, I replied. I'm glad it's over. You? We've been thinking about starting a rap group, Derek's rich southern drawl voice sputtered. A rap group? Yeah, Doobie answered. We're going to be called the Fog Boys. Okay. I looked at the two for a moment. I could see Doobie rapping. He usually freestyled whenever he got tipsy, but Derek? I couldn't imagine him, a country boy from Indiana, rapping. The Fog Boys? How did you come up with that? Earlier tonight, Derek began, before being kicked by Doobie, which drew out a burst of laughter from him. You know that house behind Subway? Me and Doobie decided that we wanted to see if anybody lived there, since there was never any cars over there. So we decided to go tonight, since the fog would disguise us and keep us hidden. So thus, we were Fog Boys. Really? I snickered. Yeah, and this this dumb motherfucker left his slushy sitting on the kitchen table. But, Derek emphasized as he shook his finger in the air, but he did leave it with a roll of toilet paper. I glanced at Doobie as a laugh escaped. Why would you take a roll of toilet paper? Patrick's out in there, Doobie tried to justify. But anyways, Derek spoke in his deeper voice, returning to the subject of rapping. I know that you write songs, right? So we were wondering if you would be willing to write some for us. My brow furrowed. What exactly are you looking for? Juggalo-style songs, Doobie said as he threw up the hand sign WC. You know who ICP and Twisted are, don't you? Derek asked. Yeah, I know what he meant. I'm down with the clown. Sorry, I have to say, I'm pretty sure that my accent is completely ruining your writing, but sorry about that. That's my boy, Doobie stated as he smacked my hand in one of those secret handshake type of manner. I only wrote pop and rock songs, but I can give it a shot, I guess. That's what's up. Doobie flicked the butt of his cigarette into the yard as we all stood and went inside the house. So, cool. Very nice. I like your dialogue. It's very natural. But I think my accent is a bit more completely unlike what you wrote them as, and I don't want to fake the accent because that's probably going to sound even worse. So I'm just going to keep with the South African if that's okay. But I really like the way you write, so I'm glad. I'm very happy for you. I like the way this is going. It seems very like story-like, so it's interesting to see where this is going. It's like my kind of memoir, I have to say. Cool. All right, so my cat is randomly taking a bath behind me. I don't know why she's doing this. She's like purposefully sitting where the camera is. going to catch her. Maybe she thinks she wants to be like a movie star or something. Anyway, as I was saying, nope, wrong way around. That way is probably a better way. That's it. Okay. So, now the question is, do you guys want to keep doing sprints? Because we are now officially past 2 hours. We are now at 2 hours and about 15 minutes. Exactly 15 minutes right now. So let me know what you guys think. I'm kind of in between things right now, so I think I'm going to close this thing up because yeah, I don't want to work too much on weekends because I'm already working long hours in the week, so I don't want to also work weekends if I don't have to, because that's just going to exhaust me, and I'm really trying not to get into the exhausted phase of my life quite yet, because that just means I'm a lot less productive. Right, so DL says, thanks, it's going to span over the course of about 6 years. That's interesting. And then he also says, I think I'm done for the day. I gotta go to my mom's in a few. All right, so I think I'm going to say goodnight to you guys, and thanks so much for joining. If you haven't yet, I would really appreciate if you would hit like for me and to subscribe to my channel, because, you know, we are all serving the YouTube algorithm, so all of the above would actually help me a lot. And then also, I'll see you guys hopefully next week, and that will be 5 p.m. South African time, 11 a.m. EST. I think that's pretty much everything. I don't think there's anything more that I should say. But otherwise, yep, I think I'm pretty much, that's my rhyme. So I'm just going to say thanks so much for joining. And I hope you guys have an awesome and a very productive week, and see you guys soon. Bye.